Hey, I'm Ethan.
Hey, I'm Mike.
Hey, I'm Honeybees.
I watched the first half of Yentl.
I watched the second half of Yentl.
And I've watched all of Yentl.
And this
Is
the other half.
Streisand
on the beach.
Welcome, everybody, to Streisand on the Beach. We have our amazing guest, Honeybees, back again. They'd recommended we watch a bunch of Streisand movies for the summer months.
I'm basically the producer of your podcast now.
Yeah, you're the director. You're the programmer of, every time we're like trying to figure out a month. We're like, what is Honeybees like? What's the thing that they're like, you need to patch this little part of your brain full of this pop culture thing that we don't know.
And you
need to watch this older film, primarily a series of films, primarily starring an older woman, please.
Yeah, exactly. I was inspired because I was finally watching The Prince of Tides, which I did not recommend for you because I think it would destroy you on the spot. You two cannot deal with that movie. But I was like, okay. I was just watching it and I was marveling at how amazing she is, and then I just was inspired by. I was like, Barbara Streisand is an icon. She's not obscure. Some person on Twitter recently, referred to her as obscure or something like that, and it was like
demure.
Yeah, no, it was obscure, and it just really got my gears boiling. I'm like, she's not an obscure thing.
No, she isn't. She's a phenomenon. I feel like even love her or hate her, about her and you have an opinion on her.
She has an entire effect named after her, the Streisand effect.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, South Park, for giving us that. And I was
it was South Park. Yeah.
I definitely was raised with that sort of shitty South Park attitude for no reason, completely unfounded. And then recently I watched What's Up, Doc, which is a great film with her. It's a Peter Bogdanovich film.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best.
And she's so fucking funny in it. And I was like, Jesus Christ, she's so fun. She doesn't really. I think she sings once in the movie, and she has a good sense of comedic timing. It's just oh my God, she's really good in this. And I should probably watch more of her stuff.
And I forced my way here mainly to correct egregious errors like what just happened. The Streisand effect is actually from a lawsuit that she had from a photographer who took pictures of coastal erosion along the coast of California, and for some reason he labeled each photo a number, but her mansion that he took photos of, he put the Streisand mansion, and she tried to sue him because she didn't want to be exposed, and it created the Streisand effect because the idea is the more you want people not to notice something, the more they notice it. So she lost millions of dollars trying to sue this guy to get this photo taken down, and then South Park
took that and worked with it. I see.
Right. It's been a while since I've heard the actual term Streisand effect. So thank you for the refresher, because that is definitely something I've heard and will continue to hear as, just a sign of
I've actually been hired by Barbara Streisand's legal team to make sure none of these errors continue.
I think what's also nice, because me and Honeybees were talking a bit about Faye Dunaway also. We were talking about how Faye is just sort of this really immensely talented actor who's also kind of a diva and kind of ridiculous to work with. And I feel with Barbara, she obviously has a lot of abilities, and she's obviously got a lot on her plate. She can do a lot of stuff, but it doesn't really ever feel like she's awful to work with.
She's lasted 50 years plus in Hollywood. Yeah, and you would think that people would stop working with her, but people keep working with her.
Yeah, even after something like South Park shits on her or whatever, it seems like she still has a lot of friends in the industry. She, it's oh yeah, it's what they refer to her as Babs, what everyone refers to her as well. Yeah, exactly. It's it's just Babs. Let's just keep working with her. She's been in a lot of movies. She still continues to be in stuff and appear in stuff, and she seems to have a really good sense of self. I don't know. It's nice to see that sort of thing when on top of all of that, you're also just so immensely talented.
And she, my obsession's been since I was a teenager, but I recently did the 48 hours of her audiobook.
Oh, yeah, and it just recently came out, I think, right?
And I got Stockholm Syndrome. By the end, I was like, how am I going to go a day without Barbara Streisand telling me some story?
Yeah, that's also referred to as the Streisand effect.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, and she worked. What's so weird about her life is she was so in Hollywood so early, at 26, that her normal life is the icons that you look up to. When she wrote the script many versions of Yentl. She sent it to her good friend Patty Chayefsky, who wrote
Oh,
Network,
wow.
like to critique
Yeah.
it. Like it wasn't like she like asked. She like sent it to those kind of people.
Right. She's
Wow.
just already has. Well, she was like 18 or whatever when she was on Broadway, right? When
She was. I mean, she started really young. I think 2021 was when she was basically on Broadway, and then
Okay.
she got, I think, Funny Girl around 21, and
Right.
then they made the movie when she was 26, and then Yentl,
Boom.
ironically, was supposed to be the next movie she made. It took her 15 plus years to get it made.
Jeez. You can tell there's a lot of passion in this project as we'll continue to talk about it. It is a long movie. We unintentionally watched the director's cut of the movie, too.
Yeah.
So
Barbara thanks you
We're
for that.
talking
She actually
the whole
thanks
month
you.
about if we're all here for Streisand month, we're gonna do the whole 9 yards. We're gonna see her vision,
yes, that's right.
unimpeded by these executives coming in and cutting down Yentl, boiling it down, one might say, into something that maybe she was not happy with. So we
Yeah.
got the whole Yentl's, what we're
The whole
saying
Yentl, that's right. This isn't circumcised here. We're doing the whole thing.
here. No, not at all. Not at all.
Which is funny because I'm curious to hear because I watched the normal version that doesn't have the added stuff, and I'm just curious to listen in and see if they're like, oh, that's what was different.
It's not that
Well,
much.
we're-
I understand why they sort of cut some of the stuff for like timing or whatever, but like there's some nice little. The funny thing is, it's obvious because you know the final stuff that appears in the movie looks like final. It looks good. It's got like good lighting, and then all of a sudden there'll be like a work print with like writing all over the film, and there's like all this like scratches and dust.
Yeah.
Like they didn't spend any of the money
Kinda
like
like
trying
that,
to.
though.
And what-
it added to it.
Yeah, and what's interesting, because this movie, as we were discussing before, she wrote, directed, starred, and produced. She talks about when she was making Funny Girl, how the director got rid of some footage, and like it still haunts her to this day because she wanted to have that footage in case 40 years later, like this, she wanted to add it back in just to make it more complete. So I'm not shocked that she did release it with some work footage.
Especially if it is like something she cares so much about and like was part of her for so long. I think there's a lot of artists out there who like when they are attached to a passion project, they don't really have a good sense of perspective, you know. So it's like, I mean, it's the, you know, talk about the Streisand effect. It's the Lucas effect. It's like, oh, I have all of this stuff that I didn't want to put in the original footage. Let's like add it back in and re-release it as like a DVD or whatever, so people can appreciate it. But rather than that be, you know, some big, you know, science fiction film, this is a very quiet, you know, peaceful, personal film about, you know, what it's like to be a Jewish woman in the world and the thing people expect from you.
I mean, the word of the day for this movie is monochromatic. Barbara Streisand loves like monochromatic everything. Like that's why she wears all white in photos, and that's why like there's that famous photo of her in her drawing room with like all the reds, and it has like her awards in the background. And I feel like Yentl is her realizing that, because the whole movie has this sort of beige, gray, black and white kind of feel to it, and it's definitely her eye.
Yeah, and even the poster, it's literally like her face amongst black. Like it's very striking. It almost feels like scary.
Minimalistic.
Very minimalist.
Yeah, it does look scary. Yeah, but I gotta say, what was her inspiration for this movie? Because I feel like, to me, when I watched it without any knowledge about what this was at all, I had no idea. I was like, Yentl, that sounds like a fun name. Or a
Yentl
thing.
sounds
I don't
metal.
know what it is.
So
yeah, exactly.
so I mean, I don't have the 3.5 hours that she devotes to it in her book, but essentially she loved this. It was a short story written by an Orthodox Jewish man called Yentl the Yeshiva Boy. And it wasn't the exact story you see in the movie, but it was about basically a woman who wants to study, you know, the Torah. She disguises herself as a boy, and you know, hilarity ensues. And she, as I said, like after Funny Girl, she acquired the rights to it and spent basically 15 years trying to get it produced. Everyone said no. They're like, this wouldn't work as a movie. It's too, you know, it's too cultural. It's too ethnic. It doesn't work. And she actually, in her book, covers a whole thing about what it is to be the Jewish experience in the 70s and 80s. And what really got it done was she was going in and out, rewriting drafts. And my favorite little part of this story is she went to her father's gravestone. Her dad died when she was like just a baby. And her brother snapped a photo of her by the tombstone. Then later, her brother basically was like, I have met a psychic. You will not believe this, Barbara. Like, it's a real psychic. And they went to the psychic, and the psychic told her messages from her father. And then later, she had that photo printed, you know, like back in the old days where we brought it to CVS or whatever. And in the photo next to her dad's gravestone was the name of Yentl's brother, Anshul, who died in the movie. And she took that as a sign that I need to make this movie. She didn't want it to be a musical. She wanted it to be a straight movie. But every studio was like, no, you're a music, celebrity, you sing. And it wasn't till she finally was like, yes, I'll do singing. But my way around this is it'll all be in my head. Like, it'll all be voiceover singing, because she knew that people would produce it. And the other fun fact about this movie that I found interesting was there was a movie that came out a year or two before they started filming it called Heaven's Gate. And it was a huge financial flop.
Oh, yeah, that big Western, like, expensive, like, long film, Michael Giacchino or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was such a huge flop that her movie had a $14 million budget. And they started this new rule that was like, we need to really look at movies that are over $10 million in budget. And so she actually lost money. And this is like an indie, in a way, this is like an indie film. Like, this movie, for what she does with it, she was doing it with $12 million budget.
I'm sure so much of that was also her money. Like, she was probably putting up a lot of
money
for
I think
this.
she did, yeah. And she definitely took like a pay cut. She took like, she didn't like get the the proper pay for being a writer of the movie. She definitely did that.
It is funny how much she, I mean, one of the funny things about this movie, about the poster is, it's a photo of her, black background, and then in little like golden like type, it just says, a film with music. Like, it's
I know, I love
really
that.
telling you up front this is supposed to be
so I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked when music started happening. I was like, I mean, it makes sense. I was shocked for a second, and I thought about it for a little bit longer, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you have music in your sure, it's Barbara Streisand.
I know Ethan wouldn't recognize it, but did you clock the guy who wrote the music, Michael Legrand? Do you know what else he did?
No, I don't think so.
It's the same guy who wrote the music to Umbrellas of Cherbourg, if you know that movie.
Oh, fucking Christ. No, yeah, and also the young girls of
Rochefort.
Yeah, Rochefort. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so funny, actually. I was just talking to Ethan about this guy recently. I couldn't place his name. So that's so funny. That makes a lot of sense, actually, because so much of the lyrics are just like, his music and lyrics are very like weirdly conversational and like very sort of like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a very interesting style. Yeah. It's funny because she obviously had to do it in order to produce the movie, but it feels, I don't know if I like it, but it feels like sort of like intrinsically part of the film. It's literally the thing the movie ends on, is like her finally like singing this big, wonderful thing on the back of a ship, and it's like it feels like it's part of the piece, even though it sounds like it's something she had to do in order to get the movie made.
Quite remember exactly, but like, as I said, she basically eventually was like, okay, I'll make it a musical, but what I want it to be is mostly in her head, voiceover, and it's her inner thoughts. Like, the songs are the only time she sings out loud, or when she's alone, or at the end of that boat, because why not?
I noticed that too. Yeah, I was picking up on the thing of like if people would leave the room, then she would be able to sing out loud. But once people were in the room, it was all in her head, and I was like, oh, this is a clever way.
Yeah, I do think that is also kind of metaphorical to kind of what the movie's also going for, is that obviously she has a huge secret. Mm-hmm. The secret she can sing. No, it's the secret is obviously that she's a woman reading sacred books, and we can't have that.
The real secret is that it's 1904 and she has a French manicure.
That's the real problem.
Oh, yeah,
Cinema Sin. Ding.
Cinema Sin.
That was Barbara. She always had nice nails, and it was like, no matter what role she does, I think maybe maybe some movies, but no matter what role she does, there's always this beautiful manicure.
It is funny because she is supposed to be playing like a man, and yet later on in the movie, she's like, my hands. I was so nervous about my hands. I didn't want people to notice my hands.
Her disguise of being like, I'm going to be a man. Like, come on.
She cut her hair short and she put glasses on.
She cut her hair short. She wears glasses. And then she doesn't change her voice at all. She didn't even try to deepen it at all. Just be like, homeschool totally. No. She's talking the exact same way. She even screams multiple times. And I'm like, no one's catching on to
And
this?
what's
Or
so
just like it's so impossible.
What is another moment is in making this movie, a lot of people be like, "You can't play a man. You can't play a man." And allegedly, at that time, John Peters, who was her partner / lover, she apparently one day came into the room in disguise as a man, and he didn't know it was her.
That feels so
Okay.
much like something you say to your partner, like, "Babe, does this look good on me?" And you're like, "Yeah, babe, totally."
And that's
You know, it's
allegedly
like-
what sold him. Like, he's like, "Oh, now you can do it." I love that idea that he's like, "Who is this man in my house?"
That's so funny. That's so. Oh, yeah, call the cops. We have to get him out of here.
Barbara, where are you, Barbara?
Barbara, where are you?
Just suplexes her.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to how the beginning of this movie starts. Get to some of the plot, and maybe you can intersperse some more trivia facts as we continue on. But it starts off. The movie starts off with a line that says, "In a time where the world of study belonged only to men, there lived a girl called Yentl." Now that was not a cool read. They didn't have a voiceover for that. It was just text on the screen.
In a world.
In a world, in a time. But the time is Eastern Europe, 1904. The movie starts following a guy going to temple. And it's a very traditional old Jewish community, it looks like. It's not very big. It's kind of like, I would say, a small village, maybe, in size. Like, it's a bustling village, but it's not like town style. It's not
Right.
huge. And there's shots of establishing shots in the movie showing boys talking about books and reading and talking,
Oh yeah, there's like
debating all
the
time.
book cart. You can buy, the book cart comes.
And then the
with
book
that.
cart
yes.
shows up. But the ladies do no concern. They're all talking about the price of parsnips and how that's going up. But the bookseller wanders in. He's got a whole big thing of books, and he's going around saying, "Storybooks for women, sacred books for men." I'm like, man, those are some really hard gender lines right there. Like, what if you're a guy and you're just like, I want to hit up a storybook? Maybe you can't. But all right, sure.
She actually, in preparation for this, like, did a lot of studies. She went to a lot of temples, worked with a lot of Orthodox, rabbis and stuff like that. So, like, all this is technically based on some sort of truth.
It feels very. I was gonna say it feels. I don't know a whole lot about Jewish culture, Jewish tradition, but I do know
Did
that.
you just say tradition?
I was thinking. I did. From other hit musical, Fiddler on the Roof. Have you guys heard of it? It's also a Jewish musical.
Oh, is it
But
really?
yeah, I don't know if you guys knew that.
I love that.
Anyway,
You're so clever.
So, but it felt very authentic, and it felt like they're really actually like these are like arguments that have really been brought up before, and a lot of people already debated it. And it felt very much like, oh yeah, this is very interesting. It did also feel like maybe it's just current times, and I just think it's all cyclical. But this is kind of like sometimes when they're arguing about things, it kind of felt like would Darth Vader beat Voldemort sort of shit. Is what it kind of felt like sometimes. I will get to
Goku
one of
beat
those
Superman?
examples where I'm just like, these motherfuckers argue about everything. Everything. Anyway.
It is funny when they're like, "Oh, this is what I do. I study the Talmud. I like reid it. I discuss it." And it's like, what are they discussing? They're discussing like, would Noah beat, like Moses?
Moses in a fight?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's God's most chosen?
Who's the cutest baby?
It's the cutest baby Moses.
Moses, baby Moses.
He's got that cool little wicker basket going down. It's pretty cute.
Pretty rad.
Anyway, it's a weed basket. Whatever. Okay, so we got the book vendor. She goes to the book vendor. She starts looking through it, and the book vendor's like, "You're on the wrong side. You need to go to this. We got great storybooks here." And she's like, "No, I want to buy this book." And he's like, "You can't do that. It's the law." And she says, "Where is it written?
Where is it
written? Where is it written?" And he's like, "It doesn't matter. It's the law. If it's a law, it has to be written somewhere." And then she's like, "Fine. What if I just want to buy it for my dad?" And he's like, "Okay." And I'm like,
Yeah.
not very. He seems so strict about it, and then not very strict about it by giving a pretty mediocre.
I mean,
excuse,
this
but whatever.
is gender
Guy's gotta make
roles back
profit.
then. Exactly. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's for your father. Well, then go,
Oh
please.
yeah.
This screams a lot of like, oh, I'm not going to make this cake for you because it's a gay wedding, but if it's for, two people whose names are slightly masculine, then maybe I'll make the cake for you. It's like trying to find a way around one shitty guy that's like
Yeah.
running a shitty company or business.
Sure. And you can't like go to another book person, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's just the once a month.
It's
Who
one
knows?
book guy.
Maybe it's a once a month. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we cut to her. She's in her house. She's cooking fish and burning the shit out of it. So she has like zero interest.
Yeah,
in,
she's
in
like not
traditional-
a housewife at all. She's
Not
too
at
busy
all.
secretly reading the Talmud.
She's actually reading a book while trying to cook this fish. This fish is just black.
the
It's
fact that
still
she can
on
read
the
in
thing.
general is already like against.
Exactly. So
Is that something like
father
her
is there.
dad? Her dad was probably the one that taught her.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh yeah. So we'll get to that, but basically, her dad is teaching. It seems like he's some sort of teacher, and is teaching this kid named David some stuff, and she keeps yelling out all the answers. She knows it, and David's like, "Wait, how's she know all the answers? Like, how she? My father says that any woman who studies the Talmud is a demon." And her dad just says, she's not a demon. She just has big ears and chews them out. Her dad is very supportive of her and is actually helping her study. He doesn't even mind that the food is burnt, really, that she makes. But they do like a moment where it's all quiet and they come together. They're like, okay, it's time to study now. And she has to like close all the shutters and hide everything. Like he's teaching her all this stuff because she's so interested. And she actually asks like, why must I hide my studying from the neighbors but not God? And her dad says, I trust God will understand, but I'm not sure about the neighbors. Which I'm like, that feels pretty.
I think
Pretty
she
accurate
says
to
that
everything.
later on to another
That-
person. Isn't
Oh,
it?
Yeah,
really?
I think you're right. She does because, I mean, her dad so far has taught her everything she knows.
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's very interesting,
Oh.
yeah. And like this same issue continues to come up later on. Like I'm not gonna spoil it right now, but like it comes up later on in the story, and she uses exactly the same sort of like thought process, which is a smart way of looking at it. It's like like you worship your God because you believe that he's right and everything, and all the other people that also worship him are fucking assholes. Like that's
And
a
also, like, going back to what I was saying earlier about the making of this, her father died when she was really young. This is a story about a woman who loses her
Spoilers.
father, Oh, no, in real life.
in real life. Ethan.
I'm saying spoilers for the movie though too.
But yeah, I mean, and so like this movie is very personal to her because basically a spirit told her to make this movie.
Right. And she went to her father's. Like, I guess her father is kind of a big part of this movie, actually, as well. There's.
I mean,
she's
that story
constantly
really
talking about him.
put into perspective a lot about what this movie, at least the very beginning of it, is kind of the heart of it in some
Yeah.
ways, is that the storytelling about her father passing and stuff. But anyway, yeah. So he's going to teach her, but he keeps falling asleep. Her dad is very old, and they say, we'll just do this later. All right, we'll do this later. And he goes to bed, and she prays to God. And then
She-
butcher's
she-
name.
oh.
She wears the there's a striking scene of her the traditional thing that Jewish people put over their shoulders and
The
their
prayer
head. It's
shawl?
called a yarmulke, I believe.
Yarmulke?
Probably butchered that
Yarmulke?
saying. No, it's not yarmulke.
Okay.
It's the long
Oh, okay.
one, the long like blanket-ish looking thing. I'm sorry if I offended
It wasn't
anyone. I don't know the word.
It wasn't mentioned in Fiddler on the Roof, so Ethan doesn't know what
It wasn't
is.
mentioned in Fiddler on the Roof, so I don't know
There's
it.
no song about it.
If there was, I might have remembered it. Maybe 50% chance. But then she starts singing a song, and I'm like, "Oh shit, Barbara Streisand, let's go!"
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite
but-
songs in the movie. It's called Where Is It Written? And she basically
Yeah.
just talks about like, why can't I learn what men learn, and why is there no actual proof that says I can't?
Exactly. The whole, basically her whole character motivation. But cut to the ball in the middle of the song. It cuts to her dad being in temple, and he's falling asleep in temple, and she's all the way, in the back.
They
all
force the women to
in
sit
there,
like up in the balcony while the men
like
pray.
up in the balcony. Kind of what looks like basically like a prison. They make looks prison like to me anyway. So I think that's kind of like a good visual storytelling of just like she feels trapped here, and like her dad is like starting to fall asleep in like a way that's like I'm sick, and she can't go and help him.
Oh,
But
I thought he was just
she
bored.
yells out.
No.
No. She yells out, and he's like, "Oh, don't say anything." Like even during this time where he's about like probably sick, or is sick. Well, okay, he's gonna fucking die in a second. But even then, he's like, "No, don't ever show yourself this." It's like Superman's dad before he gets sucked up into a tornado.
Right.
So then he says, we cut to him just walking around with her and talking to her, and she just says, like, hey, Yentl, I know you love all the studying, but you need to meet a man. You need to meet a man at some point. I feel bad. I've taught you so many things, but I've not actually taught you how to be a woman. She's like, I don't care about that. I'm not ready to get married. And he's like, it's important. Children are important.
Yeah, and
There's no way to pass down the Talmud unless, we do that.
And they briefly mentioned that she had a brother who passed away as well.
yes.
And
Yes,
Anshul
very briefly.
was her brother who was supposed to be doing what Yentl is doing now,
Right. That's where the name comes from as well, that she adopts later in the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so he says, last thing it says is he says, what's to become of you, Yentl? He says, and then the camera pans up into the sky, into a tree, and then the tree fades into another tree, and it pans back down, and she's burying her dad.
No.
She's putting dirt on her dad's grave.
Yeah.
And then they actually have a moment where they're going to read a sacred text, and she just grabs it, is like, I'm going to read it. And they're like, no, a man has to do it. And they're like, oh, shit, this is going to get her in trouble. It doesn't. They're just
Of
like, don't
course.
do that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. I think it's the Kaddish. It's that prayer
Yeah.
you give when someone's dying. I love that. Yeah, they're like, it's going to be trouble. And they're like, well, it's Barbara Streisand. Let her do it.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Look at her.
She's going to be okay. It's fine. So then they're cleaning up the house, basically. It seems like they're kind of getting rid of all this stuff. She's going to have to live with some other woman. And she's clearly upset by all this. And then all the women are kind of like, oh, it'll be great. We'll you only have to mourn for a week, and then you just go on about your day. It's just another thing that happens. And then they all leave, and she looks in the mirror, and she starts cutting her hair. She cuts her hair, and
She looks like Justin Bieber.
She looks like she gets the Justin Bieber old 2010 haircut.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it means you're going to be married off as soon as you can. So she knows she has no choice, but she has to act now.
Right, exactly.
She's got to get out of there. So she runs away, and she tries to pass herself off as a boy. She says that. I don't know if she's working on it, but, as I mentioned earlier. So she goes and tries to flag down a driver.
But
the
before
driver's
this
like, all
moment
right.
is another wonderful song that we all know
there is a song.
called Papa, Can You Hear Me? I don't know if you know.
No, this is not before this
Oh, it
moment. This
is?
is not before this moment.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's after this. It's okay. I know. Don't worry. I'm getting to that. You think I'm going to skip Papa, Can You Hear
Okay,
Me?
I was honestly legitimately worried. I was like, Ethan's
I thought you were
ruining
going to
it.
skip it.
You think I'm going to skip the song at the end of Deadpool 2? You think I'm going to do that?
Oh, God,
No.
I
really?
forgot
Of
it was
course
in
not.
there.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, but yeah, no, she tries going to the driver. The driver kicks her out. Or no, the driver doesn't kick her out. Actually takes her money, and then she tries to hop in the back of the car, and all the boys in the back, it's full. And she's like, they're like, you got no room here, and they just kick her out. And so she has to camp under a tree, and she starts a little light. She lights a little candle, and she starts worshiping God. And then she starts singing, Papa, can you hear me?
It's a magical
Papa, can you
moment.
see?
I love it.
It honestly, it's pretty good. I was like, oh shit, here we go. This is Yentl. We're Yentling right now. Let me tell you, it was like it was. I forget how popular this song was and how it kind of went everywhere. And I honestly never knew it was from this movie. I never heard this movie until you introduced it. But I have heard the song multiple times. It's been parodied a lot, I feel.
Yeah, it's a popular.
So
yeah.
It's kind of its cultural touchstone.
Oh,
Like I
it
said,
is.
in Deadpool 2.
40 years old. and
So-
it's reference to Deadpool 2.
Exactly. So that was a cool moment. That was a good song. They had a good rendition. And then she finally arrives at a crossing with a boat. And for some reason, the crossing felt very similar to the crossing that was in Bloody Mama. It's not. I checked it. But they look very similar. I pulled up the movies side by
Yeah,
side.
now that you say that, it's very similar.
It's very similar to it. But it's
Guy
not.
who's
It's
only
not.
ever
It's
seen
slightly
Bloody
different.
Mama. Doesn't this kind of feel like Bloody Mama to you?
No.
She shot it in Europe, so I don't think so. But I was like, maybe
No,
it's
definitely not.
Maybe they got that shot in L.A. or something like that.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe they
Who
were
knows?
referencing Bloody Mama. They were like, we all know that people love Bloody
Cultural
Mama. So we got
touchstone,
to.
Bloody Mama.
Exactly.
Bloody Mama.
Mama,
for
can
sure.
you hear me?
But yeah, so so she does goes across. She then finds a place where all these guys are just kind of hanging out, waiting at this wagon. It's a very Jewish community with all these dudes. They're all like intellectuals. They're all playing chess. Some dudes, she played chess with her dad a lot, so she's like kind
Good
of
at
giving
chess.
unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
It's like you shouldn't move that there. You're gonna lose. Like it's a horrible spot. And he does it anyway, and of course gets checkmated instantly. And he's like, I don't know. Some guy then grabs her, is like, all right, wrestle me, and you'll pay. Well, you win, you could get money from me. If I win, you have to pay me. And she's like, I don't want to do an arm wrestling match. And then she gets forced to do it.
I know
And
this
then
part's really
eventually-
funny because she's all like she's just really naggy and whiny, and because she's with all these men, and they're like pushing her around, and she's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
She's hanging out with boys. They're just like, let's just arm wrestle for money. And it's like, oh, okay. But luckily, clearly, she's not having a good time. This guy keeps bringing her back and trying to take more money from her. But then Avigdor.
Avigdor.
Like,
the sexy,
he's like, no.
sexy.
Stop it. You got to give that money back to him. Give that money back. And it's like, oh, thank you for that. And they start talking.
And you know who that is.
He's very wise.
Mandy Patinkin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this was before Princess Bride. I'm assuming, but
I think it is. I don't
yeah,
know.
because
Yeah, I think a little bit.
but the funny story that she tells about this was, at this point, Barbara Streisand is a superstar, has made movies and fallen in love with her co-stars, whoever. And I guess during filming, he started to get bitchy towards her. And he would like blow up on her
Sounds
during
like
the
it.
scenes because she's also directing him, co-starring with him, and I guess she finally confronted him and was like, "Mandy, what is wrong?" And he's like, "You're not going to sleep with me? I thought you were going to sleep with me." He had such an ego. He assumed that she would meet him and like fall in love and they'd have a passionate affair. And she's like, "Absolutely not. I'm your director. Like, I'm not going to do so." It just was a fascinating thing. Like he threw a hissy fit, and she says years later he asked her to write like a foreword for an album he was releasing, and she was like, "I can't, Mandy. You drove me crazy on Yentl."
Apparently, like, she wanted him so bad, and he kept rejecting the script. He didn't like the way it was written, and so they like had a moment where like she rewrote it to like his liking, so that because she wanted him so bad in the part. So I'm assuming he was just like, well, now that I've got it, I guess.
Yeah,
I've
he's
got it
so
in.
good. But
She
also,
must be desperate, bro.
he must have just totally thought like, "Oh, she's going to see me, and we're going to obviously have an affair."
Yeah, I think he does have he tends to have a bit of an ego. Like, there's the infamous story of him on like Criminal Minds, that show where like he was on for like signed up for like a season, and then like halfway through the season he's like, "I'm not gonna show up to work today," and he never showed up again. They had to like scramble to replace him.
Oh wow, that's another. I'll tell you the other story off stream because I don't want to get a lawsuit. But there's another story too.
Love to hear that. That's
Okay,
not on
so-
the Patreon, folks.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, so yeah, he's there. He's being nice. He's giving her money back. But he's asking like, where are you studying? What Betchev are you gonna study? He's like, yeshiva are you going to? And they said Betchev's the best. And he's like, that's where we're gonna study. It's gonna be great. And it's like, yeah, you have a dad. It's like, oh, my dad recently passed. And then she noticed he also lost someone. He had like a little like tear.
Oh yeah, they tear their like
over their
sleeve.
heart.
Yeah.
Clothes or something. I don't know. It's like a part of their clothing right above their heart. And so he had that too. She asked like, "Oh, did you lose someone?" He's like, "Yeah, I lost my brother recently to it wasn't consumption. It was something else.
Tuberculosis.
I think it was tuberculosis.
No, the lie is consumption. Actually, you were right.
The lie. Don't say that. It's not the lie. He's definitely telling the truth. We don't want to reveal that early.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So then someone asks her his name. So she says, "My name," after thinking for a second, is Ansel. That's her name. She's gonna go with it. And everyone's like, "Okay, well, see ya. The wagon's here." And then they're like, Avigdor's like, "Oh wait, well, we actually have a spot if you haven't decided where you're gonna go for your shiva." And she's like, "I guess I decided. I'll go with you guys." And so she goes with them. And the whole ride, all the way on the wagon, Yentl and Avigdor are both discussing heavily / arguing everything.
When does day become night?
At sundown.
When is sundown?
Sundown is when you can see the first 3 stars in the sky.
That's not precise enough.
Why?
When is dusk?
Dusk is when the light is no longer blue.
That's twilight.
No, twilight is when all objects are silhouette.
And I'm like, what? Why are we arguing this? This is crazy.
This is
We're
back when
arguing
we
about
we didn't have the internet. Like, what else are we
Yeah.
going to be discussing? You know?
And I just think it's also like it's establishing that they're becoming really good friends.
Oh, yeah.
But also like this is the first time in her life a man is treating her
Like an
another
equal.
yeah, like an equal.
Yeah.
You can actually have like a friend. Imagine like you're debating the same dad all your life, and you all have the same opinions. And finally, someone else is like, "All right, why don't I challenge those a little bit?" And you're just like so happy for it. But
Yeah.
everyone else is upset. They're like, "You'll be quiet for 5 minutes. We're not even in yeshiva yet." I'm so annoyed. I don't know who this guy's name is, but there's like another dude who's there, and he's just like the goofy guy. And he's just like
Oh yeah, he's just
his friend.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't even know his name. It doesn't matter.
I don't think he even shows up in my
like the
app.
comic relief. He barely has anything to do except be like, "You guys are annoying and smart, and I'm not as smart." That's kind of it. So they arrive at Batshev, and she can't live at the yeshiva, but she has to find some lodging. But Avigdor has a place. He lodges with some older lady until he gets married and moves in with Hadass, who will eventually move in with.
Hard ass, yes.
Hard ass, yeah. I was wondering if that was on purpose. If they're like, we'll just remove one word and call her hard ass.
I'm pretty sure it's probably just a pretty popular name.
Yeah, I
Just
think it's a
are
popular
aware of.
Jewish name.
Yeah.
You're probably right. So then Anshul says
Like Laser Wolf.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So she can't actually stay there because there's the older lady who's renting out the place has a niece in town. So don't worry though. Avigdor says that's fine. He could sleep in my room. We could share the same bed. It's fine. And the lady is kind of like, huh? She looks at Anshul a little bit and is like, so young, no beard,
It's
so
like,
young.
what a nice manicure you have.
Yeah. And he basically does. And Avigdor actually mentions earlier, is like, oh, well, my brother never could grow a beard either, so it's cool.
Because he's dead.
So, well, he's dead. He can't grow anything else. But, yeah, so cut to late at night. He's in bed. Avigdor's trying to go to sleep. Yentl is just studying because she has to get tested by the rabbi to see if she could join. So she's just studying. He's like, come on, get in bed. I'm tired. And then she just starts asking all these questions while trying to get undressed. And I'm like, I feel like if you're trying to get undressed, like, stealthily, you would not want to be like, I'm going to keep talking to you. But, that's her method. It works because mostly she gets information about, like, who Hadass is. It's like, oh, this person I'm getting
She's
married
also
to.
terrified
It's
he's going to
very
figure
annoying.
out that she's a woman because,
Right, but I would say that, like, you wouldn't want to draw attention to yourself by talking, right? You'd want to, like, kind of keep
Keep it on the
low-key,
DL.
because he's facing away from her, like a
Oh,
perfect
yeah,
time
yeah,
to
yeah.
change. But anyway, he finally gets in bed, or she finally gets in bed, gets really close to the edge. He turns over to her like, "Why are you sleeping like that?" She says, "'Cause it's written." He's like, "What's written?" "That two bachelors in the same bed must lie back to back." He's like, "All right, whatever. I'm just gonna go to bed."
You fucking
And
weirdo.
then he says, "Why'd you have to talk about Hadass? Now I'll never get to sleep." She's like, "Why?" He's like, "Don't you ever think sinful thoughts?" She's like, "No, I don't." And then
he starts jerking it.
cuts to there. I was almost. I was gonna wonder if something like that was gonna happen.
I mean, he's
It had
got
a
thoughts.
weird vibe.
He can't go to sleep. Easiest way to get to sleep.
You know.
Where is it written? It's written
J-O-K-O.
right here on my dick.
So then we cut to Ansel being tested. I'm just gonna say Yentl. I'm not gonna say Ansel.
I've
Yentl's
also
being tested
written
by Rabbi.
Yentl all over the place. So
Okay, good. So she says that wisdom is the most important thing, but the rabbi says wisdom is just a way to life, and they go through a whole argument. Clearly, the rabbi seems annoyed, but also engaged, and she gets in. She's passed, and then she says, "You're actually." The rabbi says, "You're a very smart person. You actually need to be partnered up with Avigdor, because he's the other smart person here. Everyone else is stupid." Is what he says basically. So she sings a song in her head that she'll never forget this moment. It's amazing, and it's a montage of her singing
studying
and being
and
happy
singing
and
and
studying
living her
and
best
doing a
life.
great time. And she finally they mentioned this earlier, but she was gonna go have dinner at Hadassah's place with as Avigdor's guests because very polite gentlemen will just hang out with other gentlemen friends as Hadass makes food.
right, just guys being
Hadass makes-
dudes.
Guys being dudes. She goes over there. Hadass makes his favorite fish dish. It's really good. They're clearly
Did you
very in love with each
recognize?
other.
Did you recognize Hadass?
No, I
I
didn't.
looked her up afterwards
She
too. I
is
couldn't remember where she's
Amy
from.
Irving. Most notable, she's Sue from Carrie.
Oh,
the good
yeah,
girl.
That's right.
But she was also Steven Spielberg's wife in the 80s.
Oh,
And
yes. And then he married another actor.
Yeah, the fun story about this is she had been dating Steven Spielberg. They broke up, and him seeing her in this movie made him fall in love with her again, and that's when they got married. I just think, and Barbara, of course, takes claim. She's like, it's how I lit her and how I showed her, and and Amy was the one actor in this to get an Oscar nomination.
So I actually read that she got an Oscar nomination, and the same year she got a Razzie nomination.
Really?
Yeah, for worst actor.
For a different movie?
No, for the same movie. Apparently, people.
What?
I know, it's shocking, but yeah, she got both for the same film. The Razzies are always fucking off and wrong about this. I think it's because she plays this sort of like wide-eyed like woman, and so obviously the Razzies see that as a bad thing, but actually really dig how eventually the character adapts and changes over time, and I think she does a really good job.
There had to be
doing
some
that.
character change for her to win, because in my half she's just kind of like, she has a thing happen to her, but
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that is probably a good catalyst for her character to change.
Yeah.
At this moment, she's just very wide-eyed, very much like bumbling over her words, and very nervous. Like she keeps dropping food, and her dad is even like, "It's fine, it happens. It's okay. It's an accident that happens all the time." And
she's
during
nervous.
this
She's
time-
in love.
She is nervous. She is in love. Well, obviously, and then so much so Yentl has to have a little song in her head all about it.
Oh, I love that song. It's all about them like having
song's
dinner,
so
and
good.
it's so fun.
Yeah, the whole song says stuff like, basically like all about like, of course, why would he not love her? Some lyrics are.
Yeah,
And
she's
why should she
basically
worry?
marveling in the fact she's like, oh, here's my competition. Like,
Right.
Exactly. She says, why should she worry when she, why should he worry when she gets up? Her biggest decision is figuring out what to wear, to pick a blouse, a skirt, and then there's the problem of what she should do with her hair. And later, as she stands and studies a chicken, the question is to roast or not to roast, or maybe better yet, a pot roast. Tomatoes? No, potatoes? It's just a really fun song about like just how much she's just like, her life's so easy. She just has to worry about like pleasing him. And I don't know. In some ways, it feels like Yentl is like kind of jealous of kind of the simple life too, but also just kind of like she knows obviously she knows too much knowledge at this point, right? Like she knows too much. She can't go back to that kind of simple life, I guess, or what she views as simple.
I think this is the thing the whole movie is really centered upon, is like she wants both. She wants everything, right? She wants to be able to like study the Talmud and be, considered just as good as a man, but she also wants to be loved and accepted by a man and like, find love. And the tragedy of the movie is that she can't have both at this time, and that's what's so sad as well, because as it's said multiple times, there's no reason why she can't be studying the Talmud. It's completely based off of just like roles at the time, essentially.
well, she can't have it all in Eastern Europe, but maybe
That's
somewhere
right.
else. She can
Maybe
have it
somewhere
all.
else.
Oh.
Nothing is impossible.
Anyway. Hadass keeps spilling things. She's so hard on herself. Then things start being weird, because the dad says, "I'm so sorry, Avigdor, about your brother who died of pneumonia," which is
Different.
consumption.
Oh.
Yeah, so they say consumption or pneumonia. Either way, one of them was swapped. Whatever was told earlier is now just being a lie. And then she walks back and brings us up to Avigdor, and he's like, "Oh no, did he say that? Oh, that's weird. I don't know why he said that." And then she says, like, Hadass is really quiet. Like, what could she be thinking? Don't you ever wonder? And he's like, "No, I don't need her to think. That's what I got you for." And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. There are some moments where I'm like, he's obviously attractive and very thoughtful, but also I'm like, he really does just continue to fall into these like gender roles just as much as anyone else does,
Oh, absolutely.
He's kind of a fuck boy in certain ways,
Oh, 100%. 100%. And then it cuts to Yentl talking about a mistranslation about basically about gender roles, really arguing Avigdor, saying that like the rib actually meant something else, and it meant that Adam was born with both masculine and feminine parts.
Yes.
Saying that men and women come from the same source, and he's like, You can't do that. What are you doing? You can't say that. She says, no, it's a translation of rib and side. It's different. He's like, you're wrong. You don't know nothing. And he starts tickling her.
Yeah.
As bros do.
As you do.
As you do. And
Tickle
she falls
fight.
to the ground. And he keeps tickling her. And I'm like, who hasn't gotten a tickle fight when they start arguing?
Me and
a
Ethan
lot
do this
about,
all the time. Like Ethan will
every
like
time.
To break the tension.
just
On the
remember an
podcast.
actor or whatever, and I'll be like, "You're wrong," and then I'll start tickling you. Like, that's just the same person in a wig, and Ethan's like, "No, it's not."
Well, what's wild afterwards is you look at me a little strange, like, that was kind of fun, and then you say, I have an idea. Follow me, and you run off, and you strip off all your clothes, get butt naked, and go swimming.
Oh yes,
and then you
the
say,
best
"Come join me."
scene in this movie, Mike. You missed out.
I see clips. I see shots of him like shirtless, wet. But I do love this thing of like, I've got all of this pepped up energy about my best friend man. I gotta go take a quick dump in a lake. You know,
I mean, this movie does that to everyone. I mean, this movie really does go against, you know, what gender roles are. But all I have to say is in this scene, the shot of Mandy Patinkin coming out of the water, nude, sitting down next to Yentl, is a game changer for like any queer person. It's so sexy, so well done. She cuts off right before you see his dick, and then you just spend the rest of the movie thinking, what's down there?
Yeah. I think
what's down there?
This is how you can tell, I think, too, that it's directed by someone who's like attracted to men. I feel like a lot of times you'll like see movies that's supposed to be from like a woman's perspective, but it's like directed by someone who's not attracted to like the male figure.
Yeah.
And like you see it in this where it's like it's just perfectly lit. He's perfectly wet. He's very hairy. It's like not necessarily like what I think a lot of people would consider. Like, you know, you see like how like men in Marvel are like hairless and like perfectly toned or whatever, and here he just looks like a good looking guy, you know. It's like he just looks like a good looking dude. He's not even doing anything, you know. It's nice, it's cool.
He's just hanging out by the water.
Exactly,
dude.
bro.
And he goes swimming, and he comes back. And he's like, "That was awesome," and she's just like paranoid. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm so scared." She's like covering her eyes a lot, like trying to like just pretend like she's reading a book, and there's all these naked men there, and it's like, "All right, come on, let's go swimming. You take off your clothes, let's go." And she's like, no, I don't want to. And he's like, oh, admit it then. I'm like, oh shit, the jig is up. And he goes, you can't swim. And she's like, yeah, that's it. I can't swim. I don't know how to swim. He's
so
like,
relieved. She's like,
I'll teach. But then he's like, I'll teach you. Come on, let's get in there. And then another guy's like, yeah, I just wade in the beginning of the water. I can't swim. You come on in. It's great. She's like, no, I don't want to. And he's like kind of at that point being like, a little too aggressive.
Yeah, she's like having a full-on panic attack. Like, she's
come on in, and she just starts screaming, no, I don't want to. And he's like, okay. And she just runs away.
I love this part of Mulan.
Right? I was thinking that scene
pretty
too.
much.
Yeah.
It is very similar to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she sings a song while she is also taking off her clothes and singing about how hot he is.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, skinny dipping. No, I'm just kidding.
It's basically that. Like, you joke, it's pretty close. So next day, she's usually pretty chipper, but Avigdor notices that she's not, and he's like, why not? It's like, well, you know, all that stuff that happened yesterday, I wasn't like a big fan of all that. Wasn't cool. And he was like, oh, you'll get over it. It's fine.
Don't even apologize.
But then he gets an invite. He gets an invite to go to his future father-in-law's house early, and he's like, "Oh, we're have dinner there later, but he wants to be early. It must be about the wedding. I'm so excited. Let's go!" And then Yentl's like, "Why are you always grabbing me?" And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm not grabbing."
Oh
you
yeah. She's like, "Why are you always touching me? Why are you touching me?"
I don't do that. Anyway, that's weird, bro. And then he runs off. So then she goes and like does her stuff, and then she's like, he hasn't come home yet or anything. It's like, I'm gonna go visit him because this is the time I'm supposed to have like dinner anyway at their place. So she goes to see where Avigdor is, but he's not there. Instead, he finds Hadass crying in her mom's arms, like just completely crying. And
why?
And she's like, wait, what's going on? And the mom is like, don't worry, you're always welcome here. You're a good boy. It's fine. You're welcome anytime to come here. And go talk to Avigdor yourself. And the dad just like shuts the door on him. She's like, okay. So she goes back, meets Avigdor, and he's like, the wedding's off. Her dad says, I have an evil eye in my blood. It's a very, very visceral statement. Apparently, they found out that he didn't die. His brother didn't die of consumption or pneumonia, but suicide.
Oh, no.
Yeah, when I first saw this as a teenager, it really blew my mind that there would be like a belief in society that if your brother or sibling killed themselves, you are cursed.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just like, what?
Yeah, it was some sort of like they attributed it like as basically like madness or something, right? Like kind of like that instead of just and being contagious. And it's just like that's not how it works, but
yeah.
Yeah, it is a wild thing to say, but it kind of does the whole thing. And she's like, no, you know, she loves you. She'll still marry you. And he's like, no, not if her dad doesn't say anything. And she's like, no, she could think for herself. And she's like, no, she can't. She can't think for herself. She's just going to do whatever he says. And I don't want to sit here and argue about this. I'm like, oh, you don't want to sit here and argue about this?
For
You wanna argue
once.
about everything else?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, for once. And she's like, no. He's like, I will never find someone like her again. She's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, he's
You know,
still
that's-
totally in love with her.
And Yentl's like, I don't know, man. Maybe someone else will turn up. Maybe someone not quite as pretty. And he goes, I wouldn't notice her if she did. I'm like, yeah,
Oh.
that's true. All right. Oh, okay. So now it's just a sad time for Hadass. Let's see. I don't know why I wrote that. But he's like,
Look how it is.
Hadass is like super fucking sad because
Yeah, she's depressed.
Yentl keeps going back and is like, you know what? This family seems like they're really mean to my friend, but they make some good food. So she goes over again.
And
Hadass
Barbara
is really
Streisand
sad.
loved food.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, she doesn't. So Hadass is sad, and then she brings up like, "Why are you punishing Avgador for something he didn't even do?" And he's just like, the dad's just like, "It's about children. I want the best for Hadass. I want someone from a good family with no secrets to hide. Someone like
You.
someone else."
Yeah.
And then the mom like kind of like gets a look, like a grin, like, "Ooh, Angela, why don't you take some more food?" And they're like, "Oh no, here we go."
Yep.
I love someone no secrets to hide. It's like so on the nose. I love it.
Yeah.
So she goes back to visit Avgador and gives him all the dirt, you know, like a good friend. It's like she's like, "How's she doing?" She's like, "She's extremely upset."
Swoop
And
in.
then they started they're looking at me to take on to now maybe get with her. You know, they were kind of trying to pass her on me as a suitor. And Avgador gets like a thought. And he's like, "Oh, well, He starts reading things and reading all these sorts of sacred texts. He says, "Oh, I got it. I have a plan. It might work. The thing is, if one of us dies out of obligation, our brother has to take his wife as a widow to marry her. So what will happen is you marry her, and then something he didn't really follow through with the rest of the thought that was
I
like,
think the idea
you will
is,
die."
Yeah, I think the idea
Or we'll
is
fake your death or
in,
something.
In the family terms, he is dead. Like Avigdor is dead to them because he can never marry their. And so in his head, it's like, you're my brother, Yentl. You take her, and that way I'll always still have her in my life somehow.
Yeah, that's what it kind of turned into. Is like, yeah, then I could visit her all the time and hang out, and it'll be great. And I can hang out with you too. It'd be great. It's a win-win. And she's like, I don't know, this is weird. And he's just like, just think about it. Just think about it. And then that's the end of my half.
Okay, so there was a very dramatic exit, and it's pretty clear that she feels something for him. And then there's this sort of cross dissolve, which I loved.
I have a
Sorry,
question
go ahead.
though, Mike, before you start. What did you think coming in at this point in the movie? Were you just like, what is going on?
I knew what the premise of Yentl was.
Okay,
already.
okay.
So I knew that it was Barbara Streisand as like posing as a man. But I didn't know any of the other stuff
Yeah,
around
the other
it.
plot,
I was
yeah.
sort of like, how in the hell do you just like fall into a romance like this? I was like very surprised by the fact that like essentially Yentl's now having to lie to now two people, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you're only here to just it's like I'm just here to read the religious like text. Like I'm not here to like get ingratiated in everyone's like whole
Yeah.
drama, but now sadly she is. So I was aware of that, but this is the moment where I was like starting to learn that there was like a whole social pressure being put on her from weird outside forces like Hadass here. So we have like a cross dissolve of Yentl sitting on a bed, and then it dissolves into fire, and it's this.
Ooh.
This was the first shot I saw, like first like specific direction choice, and it's like clear that like Yentl's just full of passion, and like romance and like emotion, and she's having to hold it in and keep it in, and it's just like, God damn, what a cool, like, clever choice. Whoever directed this movie did a really good job. So at this point, I'm just like, whoever did this, really
You didn't
strong
know
creative
that. Yeah, you
choice.
didn't know she
Can't wait to
directed
see.
it.
No clue.
Can't wait to see who did this.
So she's at Hadass's house. She starts singing in her head, "No wonder he loves her." And
This was one of the Oscar-nominated songs. Papa, Can You Hear Me? And I think this song were nominated for Oscars. Neither
It's-
one.
Papa Can You Hear Me won though, right? Like that
No,
was
it
the
actually
actress
didn't.
winner.
Neither one, but it
Really?
won. It won
I
best
swore it did.
score. It won best
Oh,
score.
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
What won best original song? Like I will say I wasn't a big fan of all the songs in this, but like there's some fucking bangers. Like the one later on where she sings at the Taylors, one of my favorite songs.
Oh yeah, I live for that number.
That shit rocks, which I'll get to eventually. But yeah, so she's over at Hadassah's house. Hadass is getting food and tea and being just like a really good host and getting really close to Yentl, and Yentl's trying really hard to like resist the affections of Hadass, and it's very difficult because clearly Hadass is a thirster.
Yeah, she is ready for that wedding night.
And there's this really interesting thing. I'm not sure if it happens here or later, but basically Hadass like compares Yentl to Avigdor, where she's like, Avigdor made me like shiver and like drop things and but you make me calm. You make me like feel like really warm and at home. And it's this interesting thing where like there's clearly affection towards Yentl, but it's not the same sort of like deep-seated passion. It's more like she sees Yentl as a person that she can like come to and feel like close with, because Yentl doesn't want anything from her.
Exactly, and like that idea that like she's only known the gaze of men.
Yeah.
And here is what she believes is another man, but for some reason that man's gaze gives her strength and makes her feel comfortable.
Exactly. So, but Yentl feels very uncomfortable, and so she runs. She runs home, and apparently Avigdor is leaving. He accuses Yentl of never feeling love, and Yentl's like, "Come on, just fucking fight for Hadass. Like, just do this." And this is where I'm like, okay, Avigdor is hot, but like this motherfucker needs to chill the fuck out. This guy needs to take a damn chill pill and relax.
He's
so goddamn dramatic about everything. Like everything is working. Like literally the plan is working, and he's still just like, I don't want you to do this, and I want to find someone that truly loves me. I'm like, dude, just fucking stick to the plan. It's all gonna be fine. So he says, he's like, something he asked is sinful and unnatural. He's about to get on a wagon. I guess I'm assuming the thing he asked was like the plan, essentially. He's like,
that plan.
He's looking at he's looking at the plan. He's like,
because
this is
Yentl,
wrong.
I believe, I don't know if Ethan said this, but I believe Yentl is the one who does come up with this plan, and he's sort of like, what?
Goes along with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's about to get on this wagon. He's about to leave the town, and then Yentl says, "Nothing is impossible," and that stops him in his tracks. And he's in with the plan. So one thing, I don't know why that changed his mind. I'm sure there's some kind of context you can let me know. But the second thing is he puts his luggage on the wagon, and then he just lets the wagon leave. And now it's like he's out the luggage. He doesn't even bother to stop the wagon. He's too overcome with the fact that nothing is impossible. So yeah.
That must have really triggered his brain. By the way, I want to interrupt real quick and say, Flashdance, what a feeling.
I had a feeling.
Flashdance.
I was like, it's going to be some
song.
cool pop song.
Flashdance was big for the day, so that kind of.
And that song is still played today.
Yeah, you never hear "Papa, Can You Hear Me" anymore.
Not in my household. It comes on at least twice a month. So.
So now Yentl's at the Taylors. I believe now they're preparing for the wedding between Yentl.
This is the whole wedding montage song.
And so she is singing. She's marrying a woman. This has gone too far. And this is where I point out that she only sings in her head when people are around because it's secret, like her dressing up.
And it's such
really
a
cool.
pop. It's such a bop. Like it's this like
fucking
musical
awesome.
theater bop, and I love it. And it really adds to the scene of like the tension of this montage of wedding happening.
It reminds me a lot of like all the great, like one of the other ones I'm thinking of is like in The Producers when he's in prison and he's basically just going over the premise of the musical, and he's just like bouncing between songs, and he's like obsessed with what's going on. It's like that sort of like same feeling of just like. At this point, Yentl is looking at the plan that she's created, and she's like, I've made a mistake. And then she's like, no, I couldn't have made a mistake. This is what I want to do. And she starts doubling down. She has this really great line where she says, who'd ever predicted the moment would come when I find myself grateful they kept women dumb? And I'm like, God damn, that's such a good line. Yeah, it's so good.
Really good.
And so she's sort of just trying to talk herself into believing that this will work. And as this is all happening, she's at the Taylors, so she keeps having to take off clothes so that they can measure her body.
Yeah, they're like, this is your crotch seam? And she's like getting nervous.
Yeah, they keep getting closer to her crotch and her chest. And so she keeps asking them to leave the room so she can remove more clothes. And it's, I don't know, like, it's an obviously simple thing, but it's this thing of like, this is this is how much he has to keep stuff under wraps, and you realize how close she's getting to being discovered, and how close she'll be getting to be discovered when she's in a marriage, when she obviously has to like consummate, like there's things that she cannot do, and it's like she's getting so close, all of this just so she can study the religion that she finds so interesting. It was just a good scene, and also it was really well edited. Like I love how much of it felt so chaotic. There's all these mirrors surrounding her. Really good shit. It was really good shit. So that scene ends. Avigdor chats with Yentl on the wedding night. This part was fucking creepy because it's on the wedding night, and Avigdor comes up to Yentl and is like, "Oh, fucking, here's how you please a woman. You gotta do this. Just,
Oh my god!
You gotta just wait around until they want it real bad and then beg you for it." And he's like whispering this into her like ear, and you could just tell that she wants this so bad from him, and he's just like giving like tips to his friend on how to please this woman that he loves. Felt very fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty weird.
It's a great scene. And so then Yentl and Hadass are pushed into the bedroom together by like Hadass's parents and like some other
Basically,
people.
back then when you got married, they literally pushed you into the room and were like, "We'll keep the party going down here,
Yes.
but you two, get on."
Everyone should know that you're banging upstairs and having babies.
You gotta
essentially.
consummate that. You gotta hear that bed squeaking, or else it's not a real wedding.
That's right. And they're told you need to make babies. So she goes upstairs with Hadass, and it's very awkward. Hadass doesn't know what to do. Yentl knows what she cannot do. So she starts to convince Hadass, like, hey, we can't sleep together because it's said in the Talmud that two people cannot sleep together if there's still a person on the other person's mind. I know you still love Avigdor. So I know I cannot consummate this marriage until you either
But
forget
you can
about
marry
it.
that person. That's a cool reason to marry someone.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
But you can't have sex with them, basically.
You can't have sex, but
you
you
can
get
still
married,
marry.
though. You can commit your life. You can still love someone else, but you can't. No.
So she's basically convincing like Hadass like why they can't do anything tonight, and also sort of goes like, according to the Talmud, you can say no. Like if you don't want to do something, we don't have to do anything. It's not just up to me.
That's where feminism was invented in 1904.
Boom, baby. It's all thanks to Babs. And so instead of consummating, they instead have an adorable pillow fight where they drink wine. There's this really great moment when they're drinking wine and they like spill it on the bed, so it kind of looks like
blood.
Like they've consummated.
Basically, Yentl comes up with this idea of like, we'll make the room look like we consummated it.
Yeah.
And oops, I spilled some red wine right where they would look check, because that's what they did check for back then.
Right, and all the parents are outdoors seeing like pillows being thrown around and beds being smashed into the wall and like them giggling. So everyone's like, damn, they're fucking going at it in there. So that happens. Blah blah blah. She convinces. Okay, so it's the next day. And there's some guy selling books who almost recognizes Yentl, and it's this. I think this is one of the work print scenes where it's
that's not in the movie. I remember. Yeah.
So Yentl and Avigdor are walking around, and Avigdor wants to know more information about what happened last night, and Yentl's being very cagey about it, and they come across the bookseller from earlier that was selling the books.
Oh.
And the bookseller's like, don't I recognize you from somewhere? And she's like, no, you've never heard of me. And then she's just like, I don't want to read your stupid books, old man. And she's being very like rude to him. And there's almost like a knowing like grit, like notice of like, I think I do know who that is. And
that's interesting.
But that's not obviously in the movie. And I could tell because the minute like this happens, the film quality just goes to fucking trash. And so
I guess none of those scenes are in my half, because I was thinking, I was like, you're talking about the work print, and I was like, I felt like it all looked pretty normal to me.
Up until this moment, the captions were completely working, and then this happens, and the captions went completely wrong. And so then
they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle Barbara's vision.
No. And so then we cut to the scenes that are in the movie where Yentl basically tells Avigdor that they didn't sleep together, and Avigdor doesn't believe him. And so she's like, "What do you think we did?" And Avigdor's like, "You touched her." And he's like, "Yeah, fucking I touched her. Whatever. That's what I did." Because you're not going to believe the truth, essentially.
Yeah.
What happens next? I said the film quality is much better. It is the Sabbath, and Hadass brings Yentl tea because I guess during the Sabbath they're supposed to consummate again. And I'm thinking maybe the tea has some kind of like thing in it to like, get the spices.
And I feel like Hadass is now kind of getting hornier for Yentl. Like,
oh yeah.
Now she's like, he's no longer on my mind.
Yes, exactly. Yentl freaks out because Hadass is coming onto her very much so. So she's like, what we must do is teach you the Talmud. Like, we need to teach you everything. And so Yentl starts closing up all the doors and the windows and the shutters. And she's like, well, what if, keeping God from, like, God's going to notice. And this is where Yentl says, well, yeah, God is going to be okay with it, but neighbors might have a problem with it.
Gotcha.
And so at first, I think it's just a means of, like, borrowing Hadass, but eventually it's something Hadass actually grows to appreciate, is like learning the Talmud and learning different parts of the religion, learning to read. Like, all of this stuff is actually something that she eventually grows to appreciate.
This is where the Oscar nomination comes in, because you suddenly see this character start to grow and start to learn and, like, starting to become her own person.
Yeah. What I love about this too is and this is, I think, what I appreciate about the actor's, like, ability here is, like, it's not a different person, it's the same person, they're just growing. Like, all the same mannerisms are there. There is still this sense of, like, wide-eyed wonder and beauty, but, like, they've learned and they've grown, and I feel like that is different than just, now I'm playing a smart person. It's like I'm playing the same person who's just grown and learned more. It's really good. It's really good stuff. All right, another work print. This part would actually rocked, and I'm kind of sad that it got deleted. But Agvidor is coming over for dinner, and there's this moment upstairs where Hadass and Yentl are getting dressed before the dinner occurs, and Hadass is, like, getting dressed behind a thing, and Yentl's on the other side of the room, and Hadass is like, "Hey, I've been reading this story about two men who love each other in the Bible."
Wow.
Yeah, and then Yentl, like, hears all this, like, oh yeah, oh, that's very interesting, huh? Okay. And then Yentl sort of leaves, and Hadass doesn't realize Yentl's left, and Hadass says, like, are you more in love with Agvidor than you are with me? But Yentl's already left, and so the question is left, like, open. But basically, it's at this moment
She's catching on,
Hadass has caught on to what Yentl really wants. But again, this is a work print, so I don't think it was in the original.
I don't remember that scene at all.
It's a great moment, and it's good too, because it stays on Hadass. Yentl's no longer part of, like, the importance of this scene. It's actually more important that Hadass is not just by becoming more worldly and learning more about the religion, she's actually gotten to, like, pick up on, like, subtler, like, aspects of human experience. It's cool. It's just, like, a cool little moment. It's a very small moment, but it's great. So the three of them are having dinner together. It's very clear that Agvidor loves Hadass. And there's this whole scene where Yentl's like, look at how he looks.
This is the song that's Oscar nominated. Yeah, that one.
Look at how he looks at her. Yeah. Will anyone ever look at me this way? And then as she says that, the camera sort of is, like, tracking over. And at one point he does look over at Yentl, but because he thinks Yentl's a man, he sort of has to, like, stop himself because he knows it's wrong, you know.
You have to applaud it that, like, she plays it in all ways. It's not just, like, woman disguised as man, lusts after man. It's like they also play it that, like, he is having feelings, and, like, and there's just sort of this, like, kind of deconstruction of gender.
Oh yeah,
that I find fascinating in the movie.
I think it comes down to, like, the way they even discuss, like, Adam, which is an actual real, like, interpretation of the original, like, source material of the Book of Genesis, is that Adam was, like, being made of both, like, genders, and when the rib was taken out, that's why, Eve comes out of Adam. It isn't just a totally different thing, and the idea of, like, God, creating an image, like, obviously God would create not just a man.
I'm gonna tickle you, bro. You're saying that stuff. I'm gonna just want to tickle you so much, bro. I'm just thinking that. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's got to tickle you.
But it's interesting because, like, all of that works.
I just want everyone to know
this.
that Mike and Ethan have stripped off their clothes and they're now swimming in a lake, and it's really weird. Right. I'm a little nervous.
I'm sitting by a log right now. Well, we sitting by a log, tastefully covering my junk.
Tastefully covering my log.
With the log. It's metaphors.
So the three of them are having dinner. It's a really beautiful moment between the three of them where, again, like how we were saying, it's like there's three different, like, it's a weird, like, a love triangle that's occurring here. Hadass has been reading the Talmud, and she has learned that she has power as a woman, and so she starts really aggressively coming onto Yentl now, where she's I want you. I want us to be together. And she goes up and she kisses Yentl. And Yentl freaks out. And it's this gray moment where, like, I mean, I don't know what it was like in film back in the day, but like, two women are just straight up kissing in front of you, and, like, it's like it's shocking. It's shocking to Yentl. It's scandalizing to her, and she realizes that she's like by lying to her and like and keeping her in the dark. Basically, it's hurting her, right? And she ultimately does care about Hadass. Like she doesn't want to be lying to her. She's grown to appreciate her, but in this moment, she also says like I can never look at her in the way that like Avigdor looks at her, or the way that she looks at me. Like I do not have that sense of attraction. I do love her as just like a person, basically. It's a great moment. So now Yentl sings.
I love how messy this love triangle is.
It's so good.
Love triangles are in so
messy.
many.
Yeah.
Such a trope that we see in so many movies, but like the level of messiness and the playing of the gender roles, and gender in general, it was like I don't know. I think it really works.
It's handled really well. It helps that all three actors are so strong.
Yeah,
too,
that really includes they're all three powerhouses. Barbara aside, Amy Irving and Mandy Patinkin were sort of at the beginning of their careers. Not that you know who Amy Irving is, but if you look closely enough, you'll see she's all throughout history. She's been in really good things.
She's really good in this. You can always just fall back on this incredible performance because it's so subtle. I think that's what I love about it. Then Yentl escapes. She runs around outside and she starts singing out loud. She's like, I don't want to hide anymore. She's actually singing this like out loud to nobody, sadly, but she is just like, I don't want to hide. I don't want to hide who I am anymore. I need this to change. And so it's the next morning. Yentl tells Hadass that patience will yield wonderful things, just as it says in the Talmud. And you will have babies. Great things will happen. All you need to do is be patient and hope for things to come. And she's like, do you trust me? And she says, of course I trust you. And they look at each other, and it's this really beautiful moment where they both say that they love each other. And it's like I think she kisses Hadass on the forehead. It's just like a really sweet moment between these two people who like have grown to appreciate one another. And then as she's leaving, a song starts playing.
She's mother.
And I'm like, oh, this is some fucking TikTok like new she's mother.
I need to look that up now.
It's so good because it's the first thing she says, and like as with all the songs, they occur in their head, so you don't know they're coming, and so all of a sudden you just hear this like narrator just go like, she's mother, and it's like she's giving mother.
Giving mother, dude.
It's great. So Yentl and Avigdor go on a little Brokeback Mountain trip together. She teases that she will tell Avigdor all of the secrets. She will tell Avigdor the biggest secret. And Avigdor keeps asking, like, come on, fucking tell me. And she's like, no, not ready, not yet. So they eventually get to a tiny little private room, and she slowly reveals all, by which I mean she starts stripping in front of Avigdor.
Yeah, I think she realizes at this point that she needs to come clean because Hadass wants to sleep with her.
What a way to reveal it, though. Like, hold on, let me get naked.
I will say he doesn't trust her is the thing.
Yeah, he doesn't believe her until she's like telling him, I'm a woman. He's like, no, you're not. I've known you for so long. And then she just rips open her blouse and is like, bam.
It's so wild. I don't know. I feel like you kind of connect the dots after. Like, there was many moments where I felt like he kind of was like, oh, the jig is up. But I guess I don't know what he was thinking in his mind.
And that's the thing also is, Barbara is Jewish, but she's not really religious. And this whole thing is about your faith. And like, imagine being so religious. Like, the idea of a woman doing any of this, it does break his mind. Like, he gets angry.
Yeah, you're right. That has been established too, because he has mentioned earlier. It's like Hadass can't think; she's dumb. You know? Like she can't think for herself.
It's so heartbreaking. And honestly, this was a really hard scene to watch because like early on, she does a really good job of expressing like, what would you do if you couldn't, like, if society said you couldn't study the Talmud, and he'd be like, I would do it anyway. Like, I would absolutely like lie. And I think she even mentions the fact that he's lied already, like hidden information about his brother, basically. And so like she's setting all this up, like we are not so different. And then as it's revealed and as she takes her shirt off, he is so upset and confused, and he calls her a demon. He says that she's spitting on the Torah. He starts like pushing her against the wall and getting violent and angry. It's just like really horrifying.
A great clip of her directing this scene at him that's really interesting because it's like her all dressed up as Yentl but like it's like obviously the camera from his point of view where she's
Yeah.
off screen, and Barbara is just like louder, faster, angrier. Like it's really interesting.
You can feel how like it feels like an attack. You know, it's horrifying because up until now he seemed like he's definitely like I said he flies off the handle pretty easily. But like up until now he seemed like a pretty chill guy. But now he's losing it, and then he starts like shaking her and going like, "Why did you do it? Why did you do it?" And she keeps giving answers that don't mean anything to him. And finally she says, "It's because I love you," and that stops him in his tracks. And he's like, "I have felt ashamed for my feelings for you as well because I also loved you." And he immediately starts to soften, and then they kiss, and they suddenly stop, and he says, "Hadass." He realizes like there's a person here that is going to get hurt essentially.
Do you think people had a similar reaction when they found out that Samus was a woman in Metroid? Do you think they had the
Yeah,
same
probably.
thought?
This is actually. Metroid is based off Yentl. It's a small known
I
fact.
figured
Oh,
that.
sure.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
The creator
mother.
is
She's
in love
mother.
with Yentl. Yeah.
She's mother,
There you
exactly.
go.
Avig-
Rolling into balls, rolling around,
Papa, can you hear me?
dropping bombs. Yeah.
Avigdor wants to marry Yentl, and he's like, I want you to live like a woman. And she's like, that means I can't study the Talmud. Like, I want to be a woman, and I want to study the Talmud. I want everything. And he's like, what more do you want? And she says, more. And it's such a good line. It's like, it's a perfect line because it's also, I mean, it's sad to say, obviously, but it's like, it shouldn't be too much for her to ask. Like, she wants to be a woman. She believes and cares about her religion, and she wants to do this other thing. And it's sad that she has to like limit and hurt and lie to people just to get the thing that she wants and to do the one thing that means so much to her. You know, it's really beautiful because like at this point, Avigdor is like, yeah, you can just be my wife, and I'll teach you at night, and we'll close all the shutters, and we'll do all this stuff. Which is, it's kind of funny because that's what she's doing with Hadass, and so it ends up sort of working out in the end the way that they are.
But that's also kind of like what she also had to do with her dad too.
And she doesn't want to go
clearly
back
was not
to
She
having
says,
that
yeah,
life.
she's realized that it's, God didn't strike her down in doing all this. I can't go back to the closed doors and windows.
It's a good moment. And so then that next morning, she's like, I want you to deliver a letter of divorce to Hadass. We never consummated, so it's not going to be a problem. And he's like, and then she's like, just leave. Like, just go and love Hadass and get married and have kids, and everything is going to be great. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. So we cut to, I think it's like months later or something like that. And I think it's like 4 or 5 months. And she's writing a letter to Avigdor. We see Avigdor reading the letter, and Avigdor and Hadass are married, and she's still studying. Hadass is still studying, which is great. And Yentl's like, I'm going somewhere that will allow me to be a woman and also study the Talmud, somewhere different, somewhere better. We don't know where it is, but she is on a boat and is probably going to go to America. And she's on the ship, and at first she's singing in her head, or she's singing alone, and then eventually she's walking through the ship, and she's singing about how I did it, Daddy. Like, I'm gonna make it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
she's
great.
Wailing and looks amazing, and it's like an immigration boat, so it's all these immigrants.
Yeah.
I can't tell it verbatim, but like she talks about filming that day and like having a crane and all this stuff, and like how it went terrible and they had to reshoot and people were pissed. But like, I love that whole ending sequence.
This is
Sounds pretty cool.
an incredible. Like, I was like, this is CG, right? And I looked up. This is way too early for it to be CG. Like,
No, it was all
believably.
practical. She had a whole thing with like a giant crane on the side of the boat to help
Yeah.
get like the
That's where all the budget
360.
It's a boat in the middle of the fucking ocean, and it's like they've got like, and they're shooting it at a time where there's just like a bit of like mist over the water as well. It's like
Oh,
it
wow.
looks gorgeous. Like, if they had done this shit now, it'd all be CG, it'd all be whatever. Like, this is, and it's like there's this amazing shot of like her close up, and then the camera just like tracks out, and maybe it was on like a helicopter or something. And you
Yeah,
see
something like that.
this boat just like disappearing. It's incredible. It's like, it's really, really beautiful. And that's the last shot of the movie, is like this bucket. It feels like it feels like a mic drop of like, look at what I was accomplished here. And you see the ship disappearing into the background, and then just like directed by Barbara Streisand. It's like, yes, bitch, I fucking did that.
God damn.
Yeah,
It's
and
so good.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was getting emotional listening to Mike because I was terrified Mike was going to be like, "This movie's shit," and like I'm going to talk. But like, I'm glad you appreciate the direction, because it was her debut. All of her life up to this point in her career, she had been curious about it. Like, I want to make a movie, but no, women don't make movies, and she faced a lot of shit for it because
Well-
this was what were you going to say?
I was gonna say this is the first time someone in a woman and won Best Director in the Golden Globes.
Yeah, and which caused a stir because she didn't even get nominated for the Oscars, and there were protests.
Yeah.
And it got nominated
Snubbed.
for multiple awards, and she talks about it being, it was a boys' club, and
Yeah.
the idea of her, being this celebrity already, thinking that she could even direct a movie they hated that.
Yeah. It's so sad because like I genuinely was watching the movie. I'm like, it feels like a Spielberg movie. Like the way it's shot, the lighting, everything is so like perfect. It feels almost like a color purple or something, the way that it's lit, something like that. And then later on I looked it up, and apparently Spielberg was like, this is one of the best first film debuts from an actor since Citizen Kane. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. If Spielberg says that about you, like one of the greatest living directors says that about you, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and it's true. It's not even like he's blowing smoke up her ass. Like, this movie looks incredible. The shit that she does with the camera, the way, like,
Also on a fairly low budget
with
too,
$12
right?
million, like that in 1983, like that. I mean, I'm sure I don't know what the standard would be today, like if you translated it, but like this was supposed to be, I think, like a $40 million movie, and they cut it down to $12 million. And she had to and as I said, that last shot on the boat and stuff, like, was nail biting because like something went wrong, and it's like, can we reshoot this? Do we even have a budget?
Yeah, exactly. I know, and it's incredible, and I'm glad they were able to get it because it is such a good last thing to end on. One, obviously, it just looks impressive, but it's also super important to the story. It's like she says, I think it's like Dad, I have a voice now, or Papa, I have a voice now, or whatever. And it's like her finally like being part of something, and it feels like she's so small and so big at the same moment. And it's so beautiful. You see her amongst all these other people on the immigration boat, and everyone looks, and I don't know. It's so powerful and beautiful, and it means so much, and it looks incredible as well.
Yeah, and apparently it went 1.5 million over budget. She paid for it out of her salary. Like, she was determined to get this movie made.
Fucking good for her.
It was
man.
profitable in the end, which is at least nice. So that's a good thing.
That's good.
But,
yeah, this is one of her better movies, and the fact that I often say this, like we were talking about Julio Torres's Problemista.
Oh, yes.
I think I said to Mike, I was like, this is his Yentl. He directed, starred it, produced it, wrote it. It's what a feat to do, and
yes,
she did it, and and did it masterfully.
Yeah, and I obviously am I understand the thing of like, well, whenever you hear something like that, I think a lot of times, especially with I think there's definitely a sexist thing to go like, oh, well, she's just, such a prima donna. She has to put herself in everything. She has to do all this stuff and whatever. But it's like fucking men do this shit all the time. And on top of that, she is obviously the main character of the movie, but there's so much care put into every other character in this film. Obviously she's the only one singing and she's the protagonist, but there is genuine care put with Hadass and
she referenced when Warren Beatty made the movie Reds, which he wrote, direct, she's like, no one challenged him and his ability to do it. And it was around the same exact time.
Yeah.
It's just ironic that a movie about gender roles and how society is like, you can't do this. This is, it paints you as a demon or whatever, if you do something against the norm, happens to reflect the actual movie's release and how it was received. It's very, in some ways that makes it even more, I don't know, it kind of increases the kind of strength of the movie if it's actually reflecting real times. It's just the same shit happens in 1903 that it happens in the 1980s.
The irony,
it's just a different flavor.
The irony of this is the man who wrote the short story hated the movie.
Really?
Because he thought she made it too sexual or something like that. It was just, but it kind of hurt her that he didn't like it. But
that's a
whatever.
shame.
Who knows?
Fuck
who
him.
he is.
There's a lot of fucking Stephen King doesn't like fucking The Shining, and he's a piece of shit idiot. So fuck him. Original creators can be wrong about the work that's adapted from
for
it.
sure.
It is heartbreaking though. But I don't know. I love it. I really like this film a lot. It's definitely not it's definitely not a kind of movie that I thought I would appreciate, because I think also on the surface it's like, oh, it's like a romance and it's this, and it is. But it's still got so much to say about gender roles, about religion, about stuff like that.
I thought this was going to be a horror thriller movie because the only thing I had off my mind was I saw the picture of her in the dark silhouette on the poster, and it just says Yentl, and she's looking up, and I'm like, damn, something's coming to get her. Something's going to get her. And what it is, it's the fucking Patriot.
That's
So
right.
I wasn't wrong.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm
Well,
glad that
you liked it. Yeah.
I'm glad that you recommended it. I genuinely wouldn't have seen this movie otherwise, and I really, really appreciated it. It felt like a solid, like, classic piece of filmmaking. So
Yeah, I definitely recommend, once time goes by, to like rewatch it again. Like, Mike, you should watch the whole thing because it's well directed from, and it is such a weird, like, they're like much like Umbrellas of Cherbourg or whatever. This kind of movie does not exist. In it like, you were never gonna, maybe Annette at the most,
Yes.
But like, it's like this kind of movie that you're sitting there being like, this is the weirdest kind of thing I've ever seen. And like, when I was watching it with my boyfriend, we were like, could this be adapted into a musical? And we were like trying to think about it. And we're like, maybe.
I think it could. Like,
Yeah,
so much of this stuff takes
definitely.
place within rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
There's not much like traveling.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah. No, I was like, I would be curious if they could work it on the stage. I mean, who would star in it? But whatever.
That's a good question as well. But yeah, no, I loved it. Again, thank you so much for bringing it to us. Yeah, I really, really appreciated like enjoying this film.
I think it's a great way to also kick off the month, right?
That
Like,
is
this
true.
the
We're
first
starting
we
at a
watched this
really
month.
high here.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll continue that way all the way through. It'll all be all the same quality. Right?
I'm sure.
It's gotta be, right?
It's like sand on the beach. It's always consistent.
That's right.
It's always there. It gets everywhere.
If
I'll
you
tell
guys want to check out our later episodes, you can follow us on any podcatching app. And while you're there, please leave a 5-star rating and review. We will read it in the show no matter what it says, even if we read it and then we don't like it, and then we're like, oh, you put too much sex in this. I don't like how you adapted the thing that you wrote about us.
Don't worry, I like it.
Yeah. Or if you want to follow us anywhere, we're on Discord, Instagram, Threads, X, Facebook. And also, Honeybees, you stream on Twitch and stuff.
Yes.
You want to
Not
shout out
the
some of that
Honeybees
stuff?
on Twitch. I stream 2 days a week. I play Yentl, the video game. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be a
you
pretty good
imagine?
FMV video game, to be honest.
Oh my god, I live my best life if that existed.
But yeah, thank you so much
Press
for coming
X
on.
press X to ask if Papa could see you.
Exactly. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you for
Or
having
hear
me.
me, yeah.
Of course, and please come back later this month to talk about another Barbara Streisand on the beach movie.
Yeah, I will. I'll check your catalog and see which one fits my schedule.
Sounds good. All right. Good night, everybody.